So now, how did we get to the Rebbe? After finishing the first ice and the Friedrich Rebbe's Mayanot. So at the end of the first ice, the Rebbe talks about Yisra and Arba Min Choshen a number of times. Right now, the simple explanation of that is the advantage of the light that emerges from the dark. Sometimes that really does mean relative. That you're more sensitive to the light if you've been in the dark. That's being like being about Tshuva to Texas or something like that. It's all relative.
Baruch.
Right, it's all relative. So there is that. There's definitely that. But here the Rebbe explains it on a much. The Rebbe does not use the words Yisra and Or at any point in the whole paragraph, right? And so that might be misleading when why it, but that is what he's explaining. What level of godliness is revealed dafka down here in this world? Right? That's what the Rebbe is explaining, right? And what is that? What level of elokus is revealed down here in this world? Yes. Etzem. Right? And how is that? So the Rebbe explained it very, very clearly. What's the one thing we can say about essence? It exists by virtue of itself. Has no, and the language of the Rebbe was quoting the Alter Rebbe. Right? This paragraph that we learned was based on the Alter Rebbe and the Mittler Rebbe. Ein loy ila kaidemus chas v'shalom. There is no previous source. There's no cause. Right? It's not that Atzmus is the effect that is connected to some higher cause. No. Atzmus exists by virtue of itself. It just is. How that works is something completely and totally beyond our understanding. With everything it's interesting because here we are in a world, and I'm saying something that everybody agrees with, that everything in the world has a source in something else, and yet there's all sorts of people who don't believe in God. Everything has a source, right? So the world also must have a source in something, right? And whatever you're going to call the source of the world, that also must have a source, right? What's difficult to understand is that there's actually something that doesn't have a source. What's that? The Eibishter, Kadosh Boruch Hu, B'chveidah B'atzmai, Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. Not, and every time anybody said Hashem, so I said, no, not necessarily, because that's, when you learn Chassidus, you have to be careful what you say, because theoretically, yes, Hashem means G-O-D. Okay, so that can be generic. And so it just means the Eibishter himself. Fine. So like I'm saying a Kadosh Boruch Hu, even though that might also relate to a specific level of godliness in some instances. But when we're talking about Etzem, so we say Etzem, so we'll know what we're talking about. Because godly light is very, very different than God's essence. Godly light is infinite revelation. Does it have absolute existence? Interestingly enough, relative to, and Amnon asked this at some point yesterday, before, Yesh Amiti, true being, Etzem, the only thing we can say that about, absolute true being, Yesh Amiti, Yesh, being, Amiti, true. Why is it? Well, because it doesn't rely on anything else for its existence. We talked about that yesterday. Right? What exists, the sun or sunlight? Sun. Those two relative to each other, the sun exists. What's sunlight? It's an expression of the existence of something else. So which of those two, now neither of them has ultimately in Mercedes, but which of those two has essential existence? The sun, which has relative existence. Sunlight. Right? Because the sunlight doesn't exist if there's no sun. Does the sun exist if there's no sunlight? Of course. Right? The sun can't decide not to give light, but were the sun to be able to decide not to give light, could the sun exist and not give light? Yeah, why not? So one got to do with the other. Right? The Eibishter created the sun, that it doesn't have that choice, and it's naturally, all it does is just, it's me'ir constantly, it just shines away, and it sends out nice warm light rays that warm us up and cause our daffodil stems to be green, which is very nice of it. Okay, because we like green stuff. I mean, imagine if we had black daffodil stems, it just wouldn't be the same, and you wouldn't bring them to your one and only. Because who would want to give black flowers to their one and only? Okay, fine. Etzem is the Eibishter himself, Mamish, Yesh Amiti, the highest level of godly light that emerges from that place, only because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants it to. It has no absolute necessary existence. It doesn't exist because it has to. It exists because the Eibishter wants it to. And we mean it in this context. We mean Etzem wants it to. Why does Etzem want it to? I don't know. That's not our problem. But Etzem wants this absolutely incredible, transcendent level of infinite light that's so powerful we can't even imagine. That level of light relative to its source is referred to in Chassidus as ayin, non-existence. Ayin with an aleph. Right? Rabbi Shab talks about this at great length in Shavuos.
How do you spell that?
Aleph Yud Nun. Ein.
Aleph Yud Nun. Oh.
Ein, ayin. Yesh mi ayin. Something from nothing. Okay. So now there's two levels of ayin, evidently. And that's exactly what the Rebbe Shab explains. Relative to Yesh Amiti, there's any level of infinite godly light is referred to as ayin because it has no absolute existence, no necessary existence. So relative to Atzmus, does it exist? No. It's ayin. Okay. But that level of ayin is so powerful, it couldn't possibly be the source of a finite world. Or even, finitude in any way, shape, or form, even metaphysical finitude. It couldn't be. It's just so completely and totally transcendent of that. It's like trying to plug your phone into the electricity that comes out of the dam. They plug it into the first little zap of electricity that's coming out of the turbine in the dam. Well, it's not going to happen. Your phone won't be uncharged. It'll lack existence. Okay, fine. So it takes quite a while to take that electric current and process it so that it comes out of the wall over there. It's quite a distance from the turbine at Niagara Falls to that, or the Hoover Dam, or wherever it happens to come from. Right? When I grew up, electricity in British Columbia was free. There was no electric bill, no water bill. Water bill because if you want to shower, just go outside and with some shampoo and take a shower in the rain. But no, because there was all hydroelectric power, and it was super cheap to produce, and so there was no electric bill. It came from your taxes. Your taxes helped BC Electric produce the electric, and everybody got electricity for free. It was just endless amounts of it. So they just more water flowing over turbines and some, this dam, that dam, that dam. Okay. But you can't plug your phone into whatever electricity is coming out of that place. And you've all seen just how powerful electricity can be, those of you from North America. I don't know whether it's the same in Europe. I've never experienced it in Europe. In North America, and some quiet summer night you might not even hear it anymore because no one drives with their windows open anymore, because there's air conditioning. But in the old days, when you used to drive on the highway late at night when it's quiet with your windows open and you went past those heavy-duty electrical wires, what would you hear? The electricity coming through there. I would not want to be anywhere near it, and if you touch it, you're gone. That's pretty serious electricity. Okay, fine. So that's too powerful to be clothed in any electric kli that you and I use. Okay, so that's just the mashal for godly light that's too powerful to be clothed in any particular vessel and be the source of that finite reality. That's just not, it's not happening. That level of godly light is going to have to be diminished and diminished and diminished and processed until finally it can come to a place where it can be the source of worlds, and ultimately it can be a state of ayin that can produce the next step, which is a yesh. But yesh hanivra, created yesh, not true yesh. So there's two levels of yesh, just like there's two levels of ayin. There's ayin relative to what's above it, and that's any level of godly light relative to the essence of God. It's ayin, it's non-existent. And then there's ayin relative to what's below it, and that's the level of godly reality that's responsible for the first state of created reality. So it's not created. It's godly. Elam Atzilus is that ayin. We learned about that. Right?
Are they both referred to as yesh ma'ayin, or is there a different?
Yesh. No, one's ayin miyesh. I mean, it's not referred to as anything. It's never talked about in those terms. But the Rebbe Shab makes it clear that there's yesh, ayin, yesh, 4 levels. right? Because the first level of ayin is a level of godly light that can't possibly be the source of worlds. It's not shine. It's just too powerful. Plug a world into that, then there's no world left. Okay.
How do you spell it? H?
Yesh Yud Shin.
That's what the world of Tohu is, right?
No,
Or is plugged
Tohu
into the
is-
source?
no. I mean, yeah. Well, yes, that the light was too powerful to be clothed in those vessels, right? But that also had to do with the nature of the vessels. But yes, okay. In that sense, yes, the light was too powerful, so it produced a shvir sekeli. Yes, in that sense, yes, 100%. That can happen in us, right? If there's too much emotional energy for your kelim to deal with, you might break. Not you, but someone might break. Happens to children all the time. Children's intellect isn't a kli that's sophisticated enough to deal with certain emotional reality. And so the power of the emotion overpowers the intellect, and so the kid doesn't know how to deal with it. Doesn't know how to bring it down in a healthy, proper way and deal with this emotion. Usually it's a trauma, right? We don't expect the kid to be able to deal with this. He's gonna have to deal with it when he's older. Can't deal with it now. It's gonna break. He does, he breaks. Okay, and hopefully he'll be able to deal with it later. An adult, hopefully, has developed the kelim, meaning the intellectual ability to deal with very, very, very powerful emotional energy and to channel it properly. So that, again, usually that's trauma, but it doesn't always have to be trauma. It can also be tremendous simcha. Children are going to be jumping up and down and screaming. Adults are going to go, oh, this is just beautiful. I'm so happy. Ah! No, that's not a particularly healthy adult response to. I mean, that's what every sports fan does, but okay, that's not a particularly healthy response, right? Except Mets fans. Not because they're more mature, there's just nothing to cheer for. Izzy, give my Zets over there. Okay. Hopefully there will be, Doc. We're all rooting for you.
Okay,
So the Rebbe explained as follows. The one thing we can say about Atzmus is it exists by virtue of itself. There happens to be a place in reality where that is revealed. Us. Physical reality. Because what does physical reality seem? How might, if you really don't understand what's going on, how might you define physical reality? It exists by virtue of itself. It's here. I don't know where'd it come from. I don't know. There was a Big Bang. Where'd the Big Bang come from? I don't know. It was there. Okay. I mean, Einstein, when he heard about the Big Bang, he fought the theory. I know very little about this. There's the little bit I know, so I'm feeling very happy and proud of myself that I can actually say 3 lines about this. Evidently he fought the Big Bang theory when it first came in, and then ultimately, why? Because it demanded the existence of a creator. Someone had to make it go bang. And then he ultimately accepted it as a reasonable explanation as to how, and therefore started using God every now and then. God doesn't play dice with the universe. What God? That's the one you didn't believe in before. I mean, the little 3-year-old grandchildren of some people in this room were much smarter than Einstein, because they have no doubt that there's a God that's absolutely clear to them. He wasn't so smart. So he was a smart guy, but he missed the point. I mean, at the end, evidently, he got the point. Right? So the fact that you and I experience very powerfully, and the Rebbe says this, the fact that you experience existence by virtue of ourselves, even though that experience is false, it's true that we experience it. So then what level in this we talked about yesterday again, but we just have to make sure we understand it because it's such an important idea. What level of godly reality must be responsible for that experience that we all have? Etzem. Because only Etzem has that experience to give it to me. Godly light can't give me an experience of existence by virtue of itself because it doesn't have it and it doesn't experience it. Godly light experiences very, very clearly its source in a level higher than it. And that's why we call it Giluyim. And we talked about what Gilui is, what revelation is. Revelation is that what I'm looking at reveals that it itself is not the source of its own existence, that it comes from a higher place. How deep is the revelation? Well, it depends on what I'm looking at, and it depends on a lot about who I am and what I can handle, and what it is that I'm experiencing. Okay, so neshamas in Gan Eden Tachton experience revelation in a certain level. Neshamas in Gan Eden Elyon experience revelation in a higher level. Okay, so we're able to see, experience, whatever seeing means when you're not talking about eyes. But okay, they see, right? The eyes are useful for seeing physical reality. Eyes do not help you see metaphysical reality. As a matter of fact, they hide metaphysical reality. All you can see with eyes is the eyes that are in our head, is physical reality. You can't see metaphysical reality with those eyes. You see that level of reality with the eyes of your neshama, not the eyes of your body. Can the eyes of your neshama, meaning can the power of sight in the neshama see godliness? Evidently, yeah. How does that work? I don't know. How do you see things without eyes? I don't get it. Right? What's an angel? So the Rambam refers to angels as separate intelligences. What does that mean? Intellect floating around without a body. What does intellect look like? Just like floating there. There's no brain holding the intellect. It's just intellect. What's intellect? I don't know. It's a power. It's just not physical. It clothes itself in a physical brain. So what does it look like when it's not clothed in a physical brain? You and I have a rather hard time imagining that, because the only thing you and I can imagine is physical reality, and that's why every single thought that we ever have is clothed in some mushel of physical reality. So we talk about God as or, talk about higher and lower, we talk about spatial terms. Why? Because that's all we've got. We can't possibly understand things on any other level down here. We do pretty well with that, in all fairness, right? I mean, the Rebbeim certainly take us to places we could never get to without them, explaining levels of godly reality. But we use words that are relevant to you and I, right? And what do we experience? We experience this very, very, very powerful experience of existence by virtue of ourselves. We know it's not right. That's why we're sitting here this morning. We know that's not true. Okay, but that doesn't mean I don't experience it. And that experience comes from Atzmos. Now, I said something yesterday that confused a few people, at least one, but I'm sure a few, right? That experience comes from the Nefesh Bahamis, right? Mm-hmm. The reason you and I experience existence by virtue of ourselves is because the consciousness of the Nefesh Bahamis works that way. That the consciousness that God created in you and I, that's the way our consciousness works, right? We're aware of ourselves very powerfully, and I'm not aware so much of godly energy surging into me. Does my Nefesh Elokis feel godly energy surging into it? I would imagine so. I would imagine my godly soul has no problem with such an idea. So that means, interestingly enough, that my Nefesh Bahamis on a certain level is coming from a higher place than my Nefesh Bahamis is coming from a higher place than my Nefesh Elokis. Because my Nefesh Bahamis is that part of me that allows me to be aware of existence by virtue of myself. That doesn't mean my Nefesh Bahamis is Etzim. The Abish is Etzim. But my Nefesh Bahamis is that part of me, physical reality. I mean, the cup and the table and the smartphone. They're also, what are they? They're very, very powerful expressions of existence by virtue of itself. That's physicality. And so that whole reality of Tachtonim, what did God say? I want a dwelling place in the Tachtonim. Why Dafka down here? Because this is the perfect place for it. Because what's revealed here? Atzmos. Essential existence is revealed here. So it's revealed within the context of a falsehood at first. But it's dafka down here. When you and I reveal godliness down here, what level of godliness are we revealing? Well, what level of godliness is directly responsible for the existence that you and I experience? Atzmos. Because you and I experience everything existing by virtue of itself. We know that's not true. So yes, the Rebbe also said at the end, need meloith, the second line up from the bottom, not counting the last word, Eilumas. It appears to him that it's not a function of light being clothed in vessels, but atzmi, essential. That's what appears to us. What is it really? It's really everything we were talking about in Ois Aleph, downward, the light emanating downward and clothing itself in vessels and godly energy, giving this thing existence. Okay, that's true. That's really what's happening, but we don't see that light. Therefore, what are we very powerfully aware of? The essential existence of the light. It is. It's isness. We're very powerfully impressed by isness, and we're not so powerfully aware of something called bittul, which is the opposite of isness. Oh, okay. That's Elam Hazeh. Elam Hazeh, more than any, that's why Elam Hazeh is what the Eibishter wants. Those other worlds, they're all Giluyim. Gilui is very nice. It's not what it's about. It's about Etzem. Because it's the source of it all is Etzem. And that desire for Dir B'Tachtonim, so to speak, I mean, you say these things, it sounds so ridiculous, but we have to say it. Who had that desire for Dir B'Tachtonim? Etzem. The Eibishter himself. Nothing exists before. There was no godly light before that. Again, before, after. It doesn't mean anything in Elokus, but okay, but we have to use those words. There was no godly light before that taiva for Dir B'Tachtonim. There's no godly light. Godly light came into existence after that, as part of the process of ending down here to see, butterflies flapping their wings in Japan and affecting weather in California. God likes that. Why? I don't know.
As soon as we had, I would think that as soon as there was like a Seder Shtalshus and a chain that was godly light emanating.
Seder Shtalshus is so far down that path. If you chart from Atzmos down to this world based on the Aleph base, so Seder Shtalshus is either Shin or Taf. I mean, it's definitely Taf. The question is it also Shin? Is it Elam Atzilus Shin and the three worlds are tough? Or is Elam Atzilus also just tough? I mean, it's the absolute end of the process. It's so far away, so to speak. We say godly light, we mean the first explosion of Or Ein Sof, Lifnei Tzimtzum. That light, does it exist before the Eibishter has a taiva for Dir B'Tachtonim? No. No. Does it exist on some potential? I mean, you can't talk about before and after by the Eibishter, right? So yes, it does, but you have to talk about it so you and I can understand it. Where does that all come from? Why do all levels of reality outside of Atzmos exist? Because Atzmos wants that level to exist. There is nothing that is necessary. It is all a function of God's will. And when in Chassidus, when we talk about, well, this level is necessary for this level in order for this to happen, and that's all true. But only because God created it that way. Could he create it another way? Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. Why are there four worlds? Because God wants it to be four worlds. So to speak, there has to be an Atzilus before you get a Bria. Okay, that's true based on what happened. Right? Does that have to happen? Of course that doesn't have to happen. God can do whatever he wants. He can go straight from Atzmus to physical reality, nothing in between. Then you and I would have nothing to talk about. Right? Which is probably why he didn't. One of the reasons. Then you and I would have nothing, we'd not be able to contemplate godliness in any way, shape, or form, because there'd be nothing to talk about or understand, or just, what would we look like? I don't know. Rebbe Shab in Ayin Beis at one point, the Rebbe Shab discusses the possibility, what would reality look like if there was a particular level of godly reality that wasn't there? How would that affect the levels below it? Now, how would it affect it? Well, it would affect it a certain way based on the fact that the Eibishter created the world in such a way that would have, created reality in such a way that would make an effect. But does it have to make it? No, the Eibishter can do whatever he wants. He is completely beyond limitation in every way, shape, and form. Don't ever put him in boxes. There's no box for him. Okay. Did he create for himself boxes so that you and I can understand them? Yes, absolutely. But don't think that that's absolute. That's just because that's what he wants. Why does he want that? Well, the way Chassidus explains it, he wants you and I to be able to discuss him so that you and I might actually figure out that there's something more to life than falafel. And we'll spend our day doing something that has real meaning by connecting to the Eibishter. And when we connect to the Eibishter, what are we connecting to down here in Elam Hazeh? Atzmos. So Kadiskafya Sitra Achra Istalak Yukudikuchu Berichu B'chulamim, when you subdue the Sitra Achra, ultimately, according to the Rebbe, now, our Rebbe, now, what are you revealing? Atzmus. Not Soivev. Right? Welcome to the 7th generation of Lubavitch. Right? I mean, that's what everybody says. I mean, the Rebbe is quoting the Alter Rebbe. It's not that the Alter Rebbe doesn't think that, and the Mitzvah Rebbe doesn't think that. They just say it in different ways. The Rebbe revealed it. It's ultimately all just Atzmus. That's what we're revealing, because that's what Mashiach is, and that's what this generation is all about.
So when you're doing a mitzvah and you're drawing in the soda, is it effectively a mixture of the limit or the infinite and finite?
Yeah, there's no question. You're connecting the infinite light within the context of your existence in finitude. But the Rebbe just told us you're doing something much more amazing than even that. What are you doing? You're touching Atzmus. Because that's what godliness down here is. That's what the Rebbe just told us. That's the Chiddush in this ois that we didn't know when we learned the first chapter. So now, what does it mean when the Frierdiker Rebbe says Yisur Na'or Ba Min HaChoshech? Which again, we'll translate loosely, the greater light that emerges from the dark. The Rebbe doesn't explain it that way. It's something beyond light, something that has a yitaron over light. It has an advantage over light. It's not the highest level of light. It's greater than light is revealed in the dark. And what is it that's beyond light? That's Yisur Na'or Ba Min HaChoshech. Something beyond light is revealed in the Choshech. Wow. Because what's not revealed in the Choshech? Light. That's why it's called Choshech. And as we said yesterday, Atzmus is referred to in Kabbalah as Choshech. It's not usually talked about in Kabbalah. It's just like, said it's there. Kabbalah is mostly about Gilui. Kabbalah talks about Chassidus. It's all about Atzmus. So the Rebbe explains in the Yonoshel Torah Chassidus that there's 4 levels. The 5th level, the level of Atzmus, that's Chassidus. It's the Etzem of Pshat, it's the Etzem of Drush, it's the Etzem of Remez, and it's the Etzem of Soid. It's the Pneumius of all those 4 levels. That's the 5th level. Famous Sikha, the Rebbe from Yutes Kislev Tavshin Chavav. Okay. So that's why we said yesterday that Nefesh Bahamis is ultimately on a certain level higher than Nefesh Elokis. So the Yemesa Mashiach, what will be revealed? Right now, your Nefesh Bahamis gets its vitality from your Nefesh Elokis. The Yemesa Mashiach, your Nefesh Elokis is going to get its vitality from your Nefesh Bahamis. Because on a certain level, the source of the Nefesh Bahamis is higher. The source of the Nefesh Bahamis is that place where there's a certain state of existence by virtue of itself. That's what your Nefesh Bahamis allows you to appreciate. In Atzilus, do they appreciate such a thing? No. In Elam Abriya, do they appreciate such a thing? No. That's why those worlds aren't what it's all about. That's why those worlds aren't what the Eibishter wants. He wants those worlds, but they're all a part of the process to ultimately end up down here. God wants to be down here. So that God up there and out, just think about it in the simplest terms. Up there in Atzmus, when the Eibishter had that vision of what it is that he wanted, so to speak. Now again, in him there's no difference between, as soon as that vision happens, so then the thing is there, it's all done. Okay, but talk about it in temporal terms. Up there, the Eibishter has this vision of a dir b'tachtenim. Up there in Atzmus, what does that vision entail? What does it look like, that dir b'tachtenim? This. That's what it looks like up there, right? That's so to speak, that's what's in the Eibishter's head in Atzmus. There's no head in Atzmus, okay, but right? That's what he's contemplating, that's what he's imagining, so to speak. So where are we? There! That's where we are. We're that place. Wow. When the architect thinks of the building, so he thinks of the finished product. That's the vision he has in his head. Does he know that there's going to be this whole process before that actually comes into a state of revelation? Yes. By God, there's no time in that process, Seder. But okay, by the architect, there's time. Okay, so when the architect sees the hole in the ground, what does he see? The
finished
building.
product.
The building. He sees the girders, the building. That's what he sees. Right? Now, each floor has its own, it's a 4-story building, each floor has its own unique characteristics. So when he thinks about the 4th floor, he sees it being a certain way, in the 3rd floor, the 2nd floor, the 1st floor, they all have their own characteristic. The 4th floor, you come out of the elevator into a grand, like there's no hallway. It's just open up that whoever buys the 4th floor has to get the whole 4th floor, and that's his vision of what's going to happen on the 4th floor. The 3rd floor, you can come into a hallway and there'll be a little sign that says 302 to 311, 312 to 320. That's fine on the 3rd floor. But no, the 4th floor can't have that. It's got to have it. Okay.
My mother-in-law wanted to know if there were granite tabletops.
Yeah, granite tabletops. Only on the 4th floor.
Of course.
As you get off the elevator. With daffodils with black stems. Right there. It's a very special place, the 4th floor. Okay. So yeah, that's also part of it. But the ultimate image of the architect, the panemius haratzon of the architect is the whole building. Mm-hmm. All 4 floors, the whole thing. Okay, let's go to base. But again, Yisar Nor Bami Nachoshev, quite an amazing thing. That's something that has an advantage over light, not the greatest light. Something beyond light is revealed in the dark. Okay, so let's read the Kitzur and Eis Aleph, and then we'll go to his base. Iker Shchina B'Tachtenim, Yavar, the Kavanas Brius Eilemas, he explains that the intention of the creation of the world, Shia Dir B'Tachtenim, that there should be a dwelling place in the lower realms. Right? A Medrash Tanchuma, Parshas Nosai. V'nasa Yadei Iskafia V'Isafcha, how do we bring that about? What's our avodah? Because after all, that desire for a Dir B'Tachtenim, the Rebbe doesn't say it in the Kitzur, but the Rebbe said it very, very clearly in the Maimer. The desire was not simply that there should be a dir b'tachtenim. The desire is that the dir b'tachtenim should be as a result of our avodah. Azriel, you don't have a copy? You have a copy.
Mine got relocated. It was Nizal before Shabbos.
Okay, so I'll get you another copy. I'm sorry, I don't have any more. I'll get you. It was relocated. Right? Car smashes into people. Kavanas Brias Eilemas, Shia Dir B'Tachtenim, and what's part of that taiva? V'nasa Yadei Iskafia V'Yishavcha. That's not how. That's part of the what, right? Meaning, yes, that's how we do it. But the desire for the Eibusha for Dir B'Tachtenim is that Dir B'Tachtenim should come as a result of our Iskafia and Yishavcha, a result of our Veda. That's what he wants. And that's Mamshich Har Sevev, and that draws down Sevev. Now we just learned that that's really talking about Atzmos. Shazel B'chul Almin B'Shav, which is in all the worlds equally, which is also the same about Atzmos. Atzmos ultimately is the essence of every single world. It's just revealed here. It's not that Etzem isn't found anywhere else. Your DNA is your DNA of every single part of you. Right? Okay. Say that. There just might, there isn't, right? But there might be a place where your DNA is more revealed. Okay, well, Eilam Hazeh is a place where the DNA of existence is revealed. Etzem. Ve'ina. Zois haisa aveda b'mishkan u'mikdash ba'avedas habirurim. This was the aveda that took place in the Mishkan, the sanctuary in the desert, and then sanctuary that existed here in Eretz Yisrael for about 500 years in different places. Right? Umikdash and the base of Mikdash, which was in Yerushalayim down the block, 810 years the first one, 820 years the second one. The third one will last forever. But Avedas Abiruim, in the Aveda of Biruim, rectifying, as we said yesterday, untangling the wires, right? Untangling the spaghetti syndrome, so we'll see where everything belongs, where everything fits, and what it's supposed to be plugged into, and what it's supposed to do. The Bechinas Iskafia, which is the Birurim. How is that you and I rectify reality? How is it we use reality properly? We realize where does this wire fit and what's it supposed to plug into? Iskafia, by first subduing the Yetzer Hara. Hamev Yumaila, that ultimately will bring a person, an elevated person, the Bechinas Ishafcha, transforming Chashucha L'Nahara, darkness to light. So that's both internal and external. Internally, we transform darkness to light by changing different aspects of our being so that we're no longer connected to dark things like we might have been at some point. And does that mean we're no longer connected to anything that is in any way, shape, or form not an obvious and a clear expression of godliness? No, that doesn't mean that. Right? Because it might be that I still am connected on certain levels to things that might be referred to as dark, but relative to something else, I might have dealt with that and transformed that negative energy into something positive. Right? Okay. Now that can happen just naturally, or that can happen as a result of a lot of work. Now, even if it happens naturally, it's not that it isn't a function of a lot of work. It's just I wasn't necessarily aware of the work. Right? We've brought this example many, many times. I assume everybody in this world, in this room, is exactly the same, that none of us, simply because we were brought up a certain way, and it wasn't that we thought about this or worked on this or did anything, just we were brought up in a certain culture by certain people in a certain way, so that murder has absolutely nothing to do with our life. We are not in any way, shape, or form connected to that. We do not have any subconscious desire to murder that we then have to deal with and do an evade of iskafia relative to. When someone cuts you off on the highway, you really want to shoot him in the head, but you realize you talk to yourself and say, no, that's not the proper response, and I won't do that. That doesn't happen. There are people that happens to. We live in a neighborhood where that is very, very, very prevalent. Free will and murder go together in the neighborhood we live in. I don't mean across from gun soccer. Right? I mean the larger neighborhood. The society next to us, free will and murder go together. That's why it's not a particularly impressive society. The society we're part of, free will and murder don't go together. We don't have free will to murder. We've transcended that. How? Not through any work of our own. We were just educated as a normal human being in what's referred to in larger terms as Western culture. And in Western culture, murder is just not something you do. Are there pockets of places within Western culture where murder is part of what you do? Yes. There are in almost every major American city, there's neighborhoods where murder is part of the free will, and that's why they're completely and totally unimpressive places. And it's about time the people who live there get it together. Let's get it together and stop being this way. It's ridiculous. Why do you live this way? Is it the fault of the 8-year-old? No, it's not the fault of the 8-year-old. But somehow that collective has to get it together and fix themselves. Get it together. This is not normal behavior. This is just ridiculous. Stop acting this way. Okay. No, fix me. No, fix yourself. Get it together. Develop some real leadership. It's one serious leader of the black community in America who's not interested in being a TV star and actually cares about black people. Just find one who will do something about what's happening to the poor black people in America. And I feel badly for those people. I really do. The people who grew up in that neighborhood, they barely have a chance. Why? Because their society is just a complete and total disaster. Because they're inferior to white people? Of course not. That's the whole point. That's why they should get it together. If they were inferior, so what would you expect? They're not. So get it together. Fix yourselves. It's very frustrating, right? And it makes life very difficult for anybody else because you can't go to it. Now half the people in America don't have stores in their neighborhoods because the people are destroying the stores. Right? So the store had to close. Like, okay, so get it together. It's okay, say the same thing about the people we live next door. Get it together. Stop being savages. You're just savages. Stop acting this way. Okay, well, it's going to take a while. Right? You and I don't have free will to murder. Why? Because of his hafka. But again, that wasn't a function of our avodah. It's just we were brought up normally by normal people. So the murder just isn't something that you and I consider. That means relative to the avera of murder, everybody in this room is a tzaddik. You're not a Beinoni, you're a tzaddik relative to murder. You're probably also a tzaddik. This is, most people, right? Probably a tzaddik relative to avodah zarah. Though you never know, because it might be that in their search for truth, someone ended up, dabbling in something that might have not actually been very healthy spiritually. Okay. So that might have actually been an Inyan and Avodah, because once they ended up in yeshiva, so they realized, hold on a second, that was Pashut Avodah Zarah. Wow, that's like heavy. I just thought it was sort of spiritual. No, it wasn't. It's the equivalent of murder in spirituality. There's murder in Gashmias, and there's Avodah Zarah in spirituality. Spiritual is not good, right? Spiritual is parav. Spiritual can be completely disastrous or very, very positive, right? It's not that, the battle isn't between spirituality and physicality. The battle is between godliness and everything else. Because spirituality doesn't have to be godly. Avodah Zarah is spiritual. It's just anti-God as much as murder and incest. It's all the same. Just one's spiritual, one's physical, to say that they're all equally disastrous and destructive. So Ishafka is transforming so now that can happen inside as a function of avodah. There might be a taiva that a person has, and they work very, very hard to do away with that taiva, and they're successful, and they've transformed that, so it's no longer an issue that they have in their life, and no longer something that bothers them. That's hard work and real work. Starts with iskafia. You can't possibly reach ishafka without iskafia. You can't stop smoking cigarettes unless you stop smoking cigarettes. Right? You can't become a non-cigarette smoker unless you do the iskafia of not smoking for a while, right? Then you can do the ishafka and end up someone who's not a cigarette smoker anymore, which it isn't. Okay, wow, that's impressive. Okay. And you also can do ishafka relative to the world around you, transform physical reality into a kli to reveal elokus. And not just physical objects, physical experience. Right? Meaning you run into someone on the street, and you can turn that event into something that ultimately reveals godliness as opposed to something that hides godliness. If it's hiding godliness, it's probably because what I'm interested in is revealing myself in this experience. Right? Either I want a positive feeling from it, or I want him to think how great I am, or whatever, however low I might fall. Whatever it is, right? But I could also use that experience, that event, to make this person feel a little closer to the Eibishter, make this person just feel a little more besimcha in their life, so that they walk away feeling better than they felt when they were walking down the street before they met me. Okay, so I did something useful in life. I elevated that little piece of time, which was my piece of time. It wasn't your piece of time. It didn't happen to you. It happened to me. It happened to him, whoever he was. Right? So the two of us have this opportunity to elevate that little piece of time, to use it for something positive, or to use it for something stupid. Tell a dirty joke, walk away. Right? Okay, fine, great, good job. Okay, two men meeting in the street. They can turn the street into a locker room. Okay. So that's Aveda. Now, that Aveda was most powerfully expressed in the Mishkan, in the Mikdash. What was the Mishkan and the Mikdash? The most powerful expression. Now, the Rebbe is going to talk about the Aveda there that did this, but also just the very building of taking physical objects and turning them into a kli to reveal godliness. Right? I mean, just on the simplest level. Took all in the desert, we took all this wood and these skins and this cloth and everything, and we made this place where there was mamish an unbelievably powerful revelation of God in there. You couldn't walk in there, right? You can't walk in there. You'll blow up. You'll get blown apart. Wow. But there's also a Veda in there. That's what the Rebbe is going to discuss. Here the Rebbe is going to explain to us korbanos in a Veda. Lochen. Achas Aveda she'ayu b'mikdash hu inyan Avedas hakorbanos. One of the Avedas, not the only, right? There were all sorts of Avedas. There was Keteris, there was lighting the menorah. But the thing that we hear about most and learn about most in the Torah, once the Torah starts talking about what Aveda is, which is basically Sefer Vayikra, right? That's when there's a Jewish people, that's Bereshis. There's Yetzias Mitzrayim and Matan Torah and a Mishkan, okay, that's Shmeis. And okay, now we can start serving God, that's Vayikra. Right? And we're going to see the first pasuk in Vayikra in a minute, which defines what service of God is all about. There's a physical aveda of taking a sheep, a goat, a cow, a bird, right, whatever it is, and sacrificing it on the altar. But there's obviously an aveda ruchnis involved in the nefesh of the people involved in that service, the Kohanim and the Levim. And therefore, there were also things that mostly the Levim did that sort of brought about some elevation of the whole process, even though the process was pretty much blood and guts in its revealed form, but there was also music happening while it was going on, which elevated it all. The song, Be'ez Havasa Korban, Shezeh Aveda Ruchnis. The korban itself is an aveda ruchni of the kohen. Imagine the kohen, the kohanim who've learned how to do this and how to elevate physical reality in just the right way by virtue of shechting the animal and sacrificing the animal the proper way, and which sacrifice demands which service, etc. Must have been quite something what the kohanim understood and what they did. And the Levim understood the essence of the korban, and somehow whatever niggin they sang was shaykh to that korban. The inyan Avedis a korban, Aveda b'nefesh Adam hu. So then, what's our Aveda? You and I can't necessarily bring a korban on the altar, and as a matter of fact, it might be that we can't even once the base of Mikdash is built, because we're not Kohanim, and that's not what we're going to be doing, right? My kids like to remind me that I'm probably too old to do anything of interest that a Levi might do when the base of Mikdash is built. So, whatever. I think at a certain, you're still allowed to be a shoyer. You're still allowed to open and close the gates. Right? I don't think there's an age limit for that. Most of the Aveda there's an age limit. I think 50 for Kohanim and Levim. But I think the gate, you can open and close the gates, I'm pretty sure. So I can, do something of use over there.
What was singing?
No, I think there's a certain age for the singing. Most people lose their sweet voice at a certain age, right? Okay, so no, I don't think I'm going to be singing. Some of my kids could do it. They have pretty nice voices. I think I'll be won't be croaking in the background like that. I could be one of the guys in the choir who just opens his mouth and closes his mouth and doesn't actually sing. Like when you were in grade 3 and you didn't know the words to the song, but you were in the choir, and so you just sat there and went. So your parents would see you. I actually was in the band and played the clarinet, but I never really took it seriously, so I didn't know how to play the songs. I would just sit there and move my fingers. At the concert, I would just move. The only song I could play was the Old Gray Mare, She Ain't What She Used to Be. That one I did. That one I could do. That was the only one I could move my fingers and actually blow in the clarinet. But right, I guess, I don't think you do that in front of God. Right? You can do that in grade 3 band practice, but I don't think once you're in the base of Mikdash you do stuff like that. There was someone who wanted to get a bracha after Birchas Kohanim by the Rebbe, so the Kohanim would walk by the Rebbe and get a bracha. So there was a non-Kohen who wanted that bracha. So he went up there and he stood there. He didn't do anything. He stood there and then he walked by the Rebbe. And the Rebbe gave a bracha to this Kohen, to this Kohen, to this Kohen. He walked by, the Rebbe didn't say anything. And then the next Kohen, the next Kohen, the next Kohen. He didn't get his bracha. You got to be careful when someone can see through you. You can't play around. So he didn't get his bracha. It's actually a true story. He really wanted to get the bracha. The inyan of Edis Akarban Ba'aveda B'nefesh Adam Hu. There's a pasuk. Now it's interesting because this pasuk is right at the very beginning of Vayikra. So the Abish there, it's the pasuk base, Vayikra Aleph, pasuk base. It's right after the introduction of Vayikra. And it describes a Veda of you and me every day, not just bringing korbanos. What does it say? So we'll just see the pasuk today, and then we'll see the explanation of the pasuk tomorrow. We'll see the basic questions in the pasuk today. T'chsiv, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban lavaya. A person who sacrifices from amongst you a korban to Hashem. Mina behema, should be from a behema, that's a klal. Mina bakar, mina tzoin, that's a prat, klalu prat, right? You say that every day when you say Rabbi Shmuel, right? The klal is behema, general animals, domesticated animals. Which particular domesticated animals? Mina bakar, mina tzoin, cattle and sheep. Sheep include goats. The lechaura, now that's the pasuk. The pasuk continues. Mina bakar mina tzoin takrivu es korbanchem, which will come up later. Sacrifice your sacrifice. A person who wants to sacrifice from amongst you a korban to Hashem. Now, obviously, that word "from amongst you" is a little strange because it sounds like we're bringing korbanos from ourselves, meaning we're sacrificing people. Really, it should say a person from amongst you who wants to bring a sacrifice. Meaning one of you who wants to sacrifice an animal, this is what he should do, right? Okay, so that the placement of the word mikem is difficult. Now, obviously, the placement is going to help us understand the panemius of it all, right? I was going to ask that question. The lechora yuksha. At first glance, this is difficult. The im, next page 113. Im haya kavanasa, im haisa. Kavanasa bezeh. If the intention of this verse were rak only levaer mishpatei korban, only to explain the laws of the korban. Have le leimar. It should have said, have le leimar. Okay, it should have said, Adam mikem, a person from amongst you, ki yakriv korban lavaya, who wants to bring a korban to Hashem. Hine kach v'kach yu mishpat huvasa korban ilchasa. This will be the laws of bringing that korban, whether it's an oila or a chatas or whatever it happens to be. Therefore, why does it say Adam ki yakriv mikem, a person who sacrifices from you, sounding like the sacrifices from us? Elo yedua kavana b'zeh. It's known the intention of this. 2 more minutes, just to see the where we're going tomorrow. Hu shaba gam levaer klolis inyan karbonis. This is coming to explain levaer. Klolis inyan karbonis, the basic idea of karbonis, ba'aveda, in service, b'nefesh adam. Meaning, if this pasuk were simply coming to tell me hilchis karbonis, it would be written in a different way. But it's written in this unusual way to teach me a deeper message. Now, if you think about it, that's how the Torah is written all the time, right? Every time you learn a pasuk, and if you learn to, take Chumash and Rashi seriously, so you learn the pasuk, and you see that there's a problem in the pasuk, it's written in an unusual way, and that unusual writing teaches you extra information. If without that unusual writing, I would learn less. Okay, so too here. And what's always interesting is that especially with Panemius Torah, the simple pshat in the pasuk is always how the Panemius reads it. Meaning, the Chassidus is going to explain this pasuk the simplest and most straightforward way. The words will mean exactly what the Panemius says they mean. In pshat, the word you'll have to say, well, it really means. It doesn't mean you're sacrificing from yourself. It means a person from amongst you who's sacrificing. Put the word mikem in a different place. Okay. In Panemius, it's going to mean exactly what it says. Adam ki yakriv mikem korban lavaya. So let's see what that means first, and then we'll stop. V'zeh, what does it mean? Adam ki yakriv. In Pshat, it means a person who brings a korban. What does it mean in Panemius? Adam, a person. Kasher yiskarev lelakus, when he approaches godliness, he wants to come close to a Kadosh Baruch, karov. Hine, mikem hu korban lavaya, from you is a korban to Hashem. And what does that mean? So now you might think that means you have to sacrifice your own korban. No, that's good. So he is going to mean that later in the page. Right now, the first thing the Rebbe says is not that at all. He says something quite astounding. Mikem ubachem, from you and upon you, talui hadavar, this thing depends, liyos korban lavaya. Adam ki yakiv, a person who wants to come close to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, mikem korban lavaya. It depends on you to come close. Hainu liyos korban lavaya. You want to come close to the Eibishter, so it's up to you. Not it's your fault if you don't. Don't listen to your Nefesh Abamis, who's going to want to explain it that way, so you'll get depressed and just go and eat chocolate. No, it doesn't mean it depends on you. Meaning you are able to come close to the Eibishter. If you want to come close to the Eibishter, it's dependent on you. You are able to. Right? And the Rebbe will explain that to us tomorrow.
So what exactly was the question?